On today's episode of The Unwritten Rule, it's the Umass preview, the dreaded weird road game for Mizzou going to Umass, which is really something that's happening. So me and Payton and Kenny kind of dove into it, really just used it as kind of a session to rehash the Texas A&M game and kind of what's going wrong, how Mizzou's season is seemingly coming off the rails, what we've heard from Drinkwitz this week, and just kind of our takes on the season. Kind of just kept rehashing a couple of things and what we're expecting for the rest of the year, and did a little deep dive. Kenny did a good deep dive at the end of the segment too on the collection of players that UMass has and where they started their college careers, which is really quite something. So definitely stick around for that at the towards the end of that segment. So it was a good breakdown. Again, just kind of talked about the season more in general rather than previewed UMass, just because the game should only go one way. But we did do our score predictions as per usual. But mostly just kind of rehashing the stuff that went wrong in the Texas A&M game, talking about more that we didn't get to in the recap, and just what we're thinking in a season that seemingly not going to end up going as swimmingly as we might have thought in the preseason. So talked about all that, and then finished, of course, with quick hits. We had Shawnee's main bird, best things we learned, jerseys, all that fun stuff. So dive into it. Good show. Talk some other college football as well. Big weekend coming up. So plenty to dive into. We'll get right into it. The Unwritten Rule starts right now.
Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Payton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Friday, October 11th, and Mizzou is playing UMass. We're here. We've arrived at the hell week, the quote-unquote bye week, right after Mizzou goes through hell against Texas A&M. Now we got to talk about UMass, the Minutemen, 1-5, facing the Tigers at home. My first fun fact of today is this will be the first time since 1964, not including COVID in 2020, that Mizzou will play in front of 17,000 or fewer fans. The Tigers will play UMass here on Saturday. Kickoff, of course, set for 11 a.m. because ESPN's family of networks wants to get this game on and off the screens as soon as humanly possible. ESPN2, you can watch it, because why on earth would it be on ESPN? Mizzou is 28-point favorites. This is a football game that's happening. Kenny and Payton, how excited are you guys for UMass? Hooray!
Yep, certainly a football game that is occurring, and a game that I think we are all excited for after last week. Just kidding. This is about as worthless a football game as I'll ever watch, because there's nothing to gain from it if you're Mizzou. You go in and you're getting basically a blood donor win on a stage that is quite embarrassing for you to be playing on in the first place, to be honest with you. They're 28-point favorites, and if they don't cover that, I really am going to have to question a whole lot of things about this operation, because UMass is 1-5 this year, and they ain't been a good program over the last few years. Their only win this season was a 4-point win over Central Connecticut State, which is, of course, an FCS program in the Northeast. Central Connecticut State. Central Connecticut. Do you understand the absurdness of the fact that there's even a Central Connecticut State? That is who Mizzou is playing this weekend. They're playing the team whose only win was a 4-point win over that school. What am I looking for in this game? A win. Just don't. Jesus God, I can't even imagine what would happen if they lost this game. Quite frankly, I'm not going to get excited by anything I see in this game. I don't think any huge performance is going to really matter to anyone. There's really no threat in this one. I mean, we can get into a little bit of UMass's players. They have a fun quarterback. They have a 2-year starter at QB. And Tyson Fomachin. I looked up the pronunciation before we started.
Good job, Payton.
He has led them to a few good moments. Last year, UMass was able to beat New Mexico State, who was led by Diego Pavia at the time. That New Mexico State team went on to the Conference USA title game. He's been around the block. I mean, he was a big time recruit at Clemson. This is his 6th year in college. He had one brief year at Georgia Tech, and now he's just the full-time starter here at UMass. But again, Missouri is going to win this game. They're going to win it by more likely than not a lot. And it really doesn't matter if they win it by 70. I mean, it's not going to take the taste of the A&M game out of your mouth. This is basically a bonus bye week before the Auburn game.
I love that there's overlap in the schedule. Mizzou and UMass have both played Buffalo this season. UMass lost to Buffalo a week after Mizzou beat Buffalo 38-0. UMass losing 34-3. You don't see that very often, but they took Miami, Ohio to overtime, losing 23-20, and then losing to NIU 34-20. 2 touchdowns against the team that beat Notre Dame, who's also a FBS independent, along with UMass. I have a different opinion on this game, and I think it's just because I don't have as much, I don't have like a fandom tie-in anymore. I think this rocks. I think this is what college football is all about. It is kind of probably embarrassing for Mizzou in some aspects, but you're going to a stadium, 6 weeks into the season, for your I guess this is their 6th game, their 7th week of the season, and you're getting to play a team that's just terrible on paper. I mean, you have a 1-5 record, and you're playing at a stadium that's really small. This is just kind of what college football is. You just have these really funny and quirky things. Some of that's going away with a lot of these changes. But I think it's even better when you compare it to the other games going on in college football this week. South Carolina at Alabama, Texas at Oklahoma with the Red River, Penn State at USC. There's a lot of good games on the docket, and then you come across this Missouri-Massachusetts game. I think it's fun. No matter the outcome, we know the outcome is going to be a win for the Tigers. I just think this is pretty fun altogether.
I so could not disagree with you more. This stinks, dude. After losing by 31 in a game that if you won, you essentially punch your ticket to the college football playoff, barring a loss in a game you really, really should win. Watching Mizzou go play a team I can get absolutely nothing out of at UMass, I mean, it sucks. This stinks. I'm not excited for it. This is probably the least excited I've been for a Mizzou game, man. It really is.
I think they'll catch some flack if they're excited, but treat this like a Super Bowl. Build your confidence up after that Texas A&M game. I think this is a good one to get right, even if it's not like a true competition like the SEC. There's still a lot of like motivation you can gain from yourself from getting back on the right footing and doing things correctly after just being embarrassed last week, no matter who your opponent is.
I mean, there is such thing as a get-right game, and I guess the SEC of all conferences does do this, where they play teams like this in the middle of the year. Usually it's a little bit later on in, like, November, but you've got, like, I know Alabama plays, like, Mercer, like, later in the season, which is also just, if they're coming off a loss heading into that game, you have the same kind of feeling. But I think it's just the fact that it's on the road. Like, it's just that they couldn't get out of playing this game like they were seemingly going to. I mean, they are still a ranked team. They're a top 10 team. You know what, Kenny? If you are so excited about it, it says right there, tickets as low as $10. Why don't you go? Why don't you go to a stadium that is nicknamed the Junkyard? The stadium's nickname on Wikipedia is the Junkyard. It is a literal admitting that it's a piece of crap stadium and Missouri has to go play as an SEC like team. Yeah, I don't know. It's also just another thing. It's after a loss like last week. You want to actually see how Mizzou responds. And like Payton said, there's no response that I'm going to be satisfied with other, like, as long as they just win and it's like, okay, this team's not completely incompetent. I don't know. Like, cause that's what I'd think if they lost, but yeah, I appreciate your devil's advocacy, Kenny. I really do. I respect it. This game will be terrible.
If my employer would pay for it, I would be at this game no matter what. I think it would just be there just to say I went to it. respect to our friends Gerard Hamilton and Eli Hoff, who both told me they're going to make the trip to this game, and talking about how I don't even think they're flying into Boston. They're flying into Hartford, Connecticut, which is a little bit closer to Amherst, and a little bit easier to get to.
I will say this, like, if you're going there, it's probably not a bad trip. I mean, I'm sure it's like a nice-ish area.
Massachusetts in October is beautiful.
Pretty area. No doubt about it. I'm not dogging on UMass as a university or Amherst as an area. It's just an SEC program should not be going up there to play at all. Okay, that is literally it. I wonder what the press box is like at Warren McGurk Alumni Stadium.
The junkyard. I've been thinking about this just a lot lately, and yeah, like Payton said, if you want, oh my, it's under construction. They actually don't have it. Oh, it looks pretty nice from the press box if you're watching on the YouTube.
Very standard looking press box.
That seems nice enough. I've been thinking about this a lot. It's just, from you want to be taken seriously as one of the powers in the SEC. Like, you can't be doing some of the stuff that Drinkwitz was doing yet last week with his antics and BSing about who A&M was going to be starting at quarterback. And then you can't play games like this. Like, it's just not a way to be taken seriously. I think that's just where, maybe my frustrations and low self-esteem as a Mizzou SEC fan, maybe that's just where it kind of harbors. But yeah, it'll be a time. Payton, did you have something? Yeah.
You mentioned like trying to be taken seriously as like a Mizzou fan. I think that kind of goes out the window, like you said, when you're like, you just have this odd sense of bravado and like swagger in the game leading up. It was just very weird about Drinkwitz going, nope, it's going to be Marcel Reed. We're only preparing for Marcel Reed. Only preparing for Reed. We're not looking at Wegman. That's semantics. And just Brady Cook with the speakers are louder at practice. Just all that. And then you go out and like have a chance to really elevate your stature, because maybe A&M, like we mentioned, I mean, they were ranked in that game, but like it's a first year of a new head coach. But going into Kyle Field and like coming away with a win in a season like this would have meant something. Like that would have been another benchmark that you can say for Mizzou in the last 2 years. And instead, they could not have failed it even any harder. I mean, they could not have failed that test any harder. And now they are going up to play at a MAC level. I know they're not in the MAC yet, UMass, but it is a MAC stadium that they are going to play at. I mean, it's embarrassing. It's just really not a good look for a program that is trying so desperately to build up its national stature in football, just trying to be taken more seriously. It's just it's the last set of weeks are a black eye. There's no other way to put it, really.
I totally agree. It's just tough. Like you, Payton said, I've been thinking about something you said, Payton, too, after the game, where it's like you're in this weird not limbo phase, but when you're trying to elevate your program to that next level, everything's kind of delicate because you need a lot of things to go right for you, and it just doesn't. It's hard to get inspired for a game like this. I want to revisit a couple Texas A&M things briefly. I was just reading about some stuff, and Missouri, like, obviously there was a lot that went bad. We tried to talk about it all, in the game, and how quickly it was over. The running game, Nate Noel has been one of the brightest points of this offense. And I read a stat today that Mizzou ran the ball just 3 times before it was then down 17-0. Drinkwitz kind of talked about, trying to get the run like more established earlier and having better offensive balance. I think there's a lot of balance that needed to be struck after a game like that. But what did you guys? I don't know if we dove too deeply into that, but from Mizzou's run game, I mean, it just didn't look like it could handle. I know we talked about the offensive line. It just didn't look like it could handle a competent SEC defense. And I don't know how big of a step back game this felt like it was for Noel, but just Tigers really struggled, and that ended up burying them in a pretty deep hole early.
I mean, it kind of goes back to the whole like just kind of momentum type thing, because Missouri came out of the gates with that. The first play of the game was like, let's take a shot to Luther Burden, and it worked. And it like that would have been if we had gone into last week and said, hey, on the first play of the game, they're going to take a shot for Luther and it's going to be complete for 27 yards. I think we would probably have felt real good about how this game was going to go. But they get kind of thrown off their game a little bit. They try that shotgun handoff to Luther that goes nowhere. They don't convert the 4th and 2, and it just kind of threw their whole game plan off. It feels like A&M drove down the field, converted 2 third downs, kind of really punched Mizzou in the mouth. They come back on that next drive. It goes nowhere. And it's 10-0 in the blink of an eye. And Kirby's like, okay, maybe I would say when it's 10-0, I think Kirby kind of did abandon the run a little too early. But at the same time, he was calling these pass plays that were absolutely working. I mean, Brady Cook had, I forget who, I'm pretty sure it was Theo Weiss, down the seam, totally missed him on a ball that would have been easily 30-plus yards at worst. That could have been a touchdown. He was wide open. They get Luther Burden free, wide open for a touchdown, and it gets brought back on the illegal man downfield. And then it's like kind of 2nd, 3rd, and long. You can't really run the ball there. So it's just, and by the time they got the ball back again, it was 17-0. And you can't really, at that point, I do think you have to go a little more away from the run than you'd probably like to. Like I said, I think Missouri kind of just has to commit to being a run-first team at this point. But going back to the A&M game, I don't really think I'd blame Kirby Moore too much for abandoning the run game. The game was already starting to slip away. The pass plays were there. Brady Cook and the offense just were not executing on them.
Yeah, I mean, it was very hard to even establish it against that defensive line as well. We saw some poor, shaky performances on that offensive line. Just couldn't get things going. And you look at where you mentioned those plays that they're executing them well, but you're still not seeing the same Brady Cook from last season. He's not as accurate. They say he's 100% healthy, but at times it just doesn't look like he's himself out there. And the running game is something you should just really lean on. You look at those numbers from Vanderbilt, 199 on the ground, from Nate Noel, 121 against Boston College. That's what you needed to lean on and just kind of go forward with. But when you do get behind in those games, you can't really go right to the run game when nothing was working. You had to open up the field. You had to take shots, and the hole just kept getting deeper and deeper. There just really wasn't opportunities to really establish it. And one of the biggest things that I think I've heard a lot is, to get the passing game going, you have to establish the run game. Coaches talk about that. They talk about it in press conferences. When you can't establish that, you can't get a quarterback to hit some wide open guys like he's done in the past. It's just not the best recipe.
Yeah, I mean, like both of you said, I mean, it doesn't help when the front offensive line is just getting absolutely mauled, and it feels like it felt like A&M could just get whatever it wanted in terms of bodies in the backfield, and you're probably scared to establish the run if they're eating you alive in the trenches like that. But yeah, I would like to see, again, it's UMass, so it's hard to feel like it's a get right game, but just, find some more offensive balance. Just maybe it's one of those where Mizzou, just to put it in basketball terms, has to see some shots go in. Maybe it's Brady Cook completing some passes and they, can at least look half competent. But again, you just counter all that with the fact that it's UMass. But yeah, I wanted to touch on that. And then a quick thing on the defensive end too. Some stats that I saw. Mizzou forced 7 pressures, had 1 sack, 5 tackles for loss. Was not the defensive outing that obviously the Tigers were looking for, especially like I said on that defensive line. That was the whole goal, to win the game. And then the secondary too it just seems like it's all sorts of mess. I'm going to read this quote from Drinkwitz that I read you both off air, but he talked about one of the defensive linemen, Jalen Marshall. He said Jalen Marshall came in the 3rd quarter and made a couple really nice plays for us defensively, which helped us secure the run game. I don't know about all that, and he also said, I think Nick DeLoach and Toriano have done a great job rotating and competing. I think you're going to see that more and more because we need to compete and get the best out of our team. That's obviously coach speak to me. It sounds like Mizzou doesn't really have a guy they like at corner, and it's going to kind of just be a 1-2 punch because it has to be. But Jalen Marshall, I guess that's promising for the sophomore defensive lineman, but just not good.
Yeah, great. They had one player play well in that game, if you ask Drinkwitz then. And I didn't even really notice Jalen Marshall, which a lot of times you're not going to notice a guy that plugs up the run game a whole ton. But good for Jalen Marshall. You know, I do remember kind of the buzz about him maybe being able to break into the rotation a bit. So I'm sure we'll see a bit more of him. Um, the cornerback room is just, it's kind of funny to hear about that because they did pretty much nothing well on Saturday. I mean, they were getting beat on 50-50 balls. Toriano Pride dropped what should have been a relatively easy interception. I mean, you see there, by the way, if you're watching on the YouTube, Kenny does have it pulled up. Jalen Marshall, sixth highest graded Tiger on the defensive side of the ball, with a 68.8 overall grade. So pretty solid stuff for a sophomore. But I mean, like, it's just, I don't want to, like, we already discussed this at length on Saturday. The D line did not do their job at all. I mean, they just got pushed around in the run game and did not really pressure Wegman hardly at all when he dropped back to pass. And then the corners were just getting beat. And credit to Wegman and credit to the A&M receivers. They were going up and they were absolutely winning. I mean, Wegman was putting it in great spots, and A&M's receivers played absolutely inspired football. They looked like a team that really was ready to play. But again, a lot of that comes down to also guys like Drayden Norwood, Toriano Pride, Nick DeLoach played a good amount. They were not making plays. Like, there was just no plays to be made. And it was ugly. And they kind of, like you said, Knowlton, I don't think if either of Toriano Pride or Nick DeLoach were in a stat, like if they were playing, either one of them were playing really well this season, I don't think they'd be rotating in and out. It just kind of feels like a necessity at this point.
Yeah, it was bad. I just think, to me, that statement read like, we have two corners and neither of them are capable of being CB1, so we're just going to kind of let both of them be.
If you have two quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback. If you have two cornerbacks rotating in and out, you don't have a CB2.
I'm going to ask both of you guys this. Kenny, I'll ask you first. Were we too delusional to expect what we did preseason? Because now it looks easy to look back with hindsight. It feels like last year's team was just so much better than this year's team was. But through the first couple games, like, obviously the competition wasn't very good, but I thought the defense was actually like going to maybe make enough plays, and this offense had so much returning that it felt easy to just expect a jump, and yet it's gone completely in the opposite direction. But that doesn't feel like it was on us. I think that says more about Drinkwitz and how he just didn't seem to prepare this team for this season.
Yeah, it takes me back to a couple of the previews I watched and just listened to for the season. And a lot of teams, a lot of people were trying to build out their playoffs, and it was always like Mizzou on the outside looking in. And I always felt they were a little bit harsh, maybe just because I paid a lot more attention to this team than some of them did. And still, their job was to look at every single team, and they thought Mizzou got by pretty easily last year, and they did. I mean, there were a lot of close wins. They should have lost to Florida. They probably should have lost to Kansas State. They barely beat out Middle Tennessee. Like, it was some of those games early on and the games late into the year, but they still had good wins against Tennessee. They won the Cotton Bowl over, an Ohio State team that looked a little bit different, but still was a good Ohio State team. And there's just a lot of question marks when you go back to that. And then the team was different this year. We talked about it, with worries about the cornerback position. How will these running backs adjust to the SEC? Will the offensive line continue to take steps forward with maybe some new guys in the trenches? And it's just like, I think we were just a little blinded in that regard. One of Drinkwitz's big things that he talked about in 2022 was, they've lost big, they're starting to lose small, win small, win big. And that was like a Bowden quote from Florida State. And it's just, they haven't won big. Like, they're kind of stuck in that, like, win by a little mantra at the moment. But I just don't think this team is as talented as last year. And I think that's where we got blinded a little bit coming into this year. A lot of guys were returning. They got some guys in the transfer portal, but it's just not the same team. And, we talked about maybe lack of leadership, lack of guys that'll, play with the screw loose, run into a wall kind of thing. It's different. And, I think they can reap maybe some rewards of a little bit of an easier schedule outside of maybe that Alabama game. But I just don't think this team is, I think we were a little bit blinded by last season.
See, I don't really think it was unfair to expect this Missouri team to compete for the playoffs, because realistically, when we came into the year, when we did our big preseason preview, I mean, I picked them to go 10-2 with a loss to A&M. I believe Kenny did as well. And then you picked them, Knowlton, with a loss to Mississippi State, which isn't going to happen.
Bad on my
But
part. One. Hand up.
Kenny is absolutely correct. We definitely did not account for, just aside from being like the type of on-field players they were, which alone is huge. Guys like Darius Robinson, Ennis Rakestraw, Chris Abrams-Drain, just guys like that. Those were flat out leaders. Like those were guys like Darius Robinson. If he was at that A&M game last week, would have been in dudes' faces. Would have been like, this is not acceptable football. Ennis Rakestraw would have been, I can't even imagine how furious Ennis would have been with some people. But I really don't think it was unfair to expect this team to at least match the 10-2 record and be able to make the playoffs, because while, yes, they were losing all that talent on defense, they won a few big recruiting battles for guys like Chris McClellan. McClellan was a guy that Oklahoma was after. Like, that was a big transfer win for them. Toriano Pride on paper, like, was a good addition for them. There were guys like on three, all the rivals, all the recruiting sites really liked Toriano Pride in the portal. So I think that is kind of the way the staff viewed it as well. I'm not saying they looked at the recruiting rankings. I'm saying they looked at the player and were like, that is what we need to replace Chris Abrams-Drain and Ennis Rakestraw. And the biggest thing I thought was going to help was the offense. I mean, I thought there was no way that Brady Cook would just have these types of accuracy issues. I was like, they've got their top 5 receivers back, their top 6, I think it might be, actually. Depending on your opinion of Dennis Jackson going into last year. I thought the offense, and I thought Carroll and Noel were great additions to kind of just recreate the production you could get out of Schrader. Bryant was an all AAC tackle. Caden Green was a 5-star freshman that played really well at guard. I thought the offense would be off and rolling, and that just has not been the case. I definitely think we were blinded by the fact that Mizzou was losing some pretty big leaders in that locker room. I think that really does matter, and that has not been replicated. I'm not going to really say it was unfair for us to expect them to make the playoffs, though, because this was supposed to be one of the more talented offenses in the nation, and it has not looked like it.
Yeah, I agree with both of y'all. I think it goes back to the leadership thing. But yeah, it just felt like the offense that's the most frustrating thing, is the offense should have taken a step forward and been that top 10, top 5 offense, and instead it took a step backwards. And you're left shaking your head like, why? Because other than Cody Schrader and Javon Foster, what did they really lose? And they replaced those guys fairly well. So it should have found enough of a groove, I think, to overcome the defense. I agree with you on that. So I was just curious. So that is a little bit more of a check-in as we got to decompress from the A&M game a little bit more. Kenny, I'm going to let you shine, because we should at least hit a little bit on UMass. And you have a list, and I want you to read from your list, because this team has a hodgepodge. That's where I'm going to, we can finish things off. This team is a hodgepodge of fun players, I guess. I don't think it should matter who they are from a statistical standpoint, because Mizzou should win this game by a lot. But please run us through who is on this UMass team, because it is something.
Payton, I'll let you take the quarterback name because you have the correct pronunciation.
Oh, shoot. I might have forgotten. Oh, it's Tyson Fomachan. It's not Fomachan. It's like Fomachan, I believe.
Fomachan. Tyson Fomachan, who was ranked 168th in the Rivals 250 in the class of 2019. Like Payton said, went to Clemson, Georgia Tech, now in his second year at UMass. He was first in the state of Connecticut, 4th at his position overall.
Is this high school? Does that say Avon Old Farms? That is an interesting high school name. Avon Old Farms. Sounds like a high school in like Idaho, not Connecticut.
Old Farms sounds like a kind of a preppy school in Connecticut.
Yeah, sure. All right.
It might just go by Old Farms.
He is old now, this guy. Omachan.
Okay, running back, Jalen John, who played at or was originally signed with Arizona back in the class of 2020, was ranked 4th in the state of Oregon and 46th at the running back position. He was a 3-star in his class. We get to the wide receivers. It's a little bit different. Jacoby James has a longer name that he uses now. Doesn't even have like an official letter of intent signed on his Rivals profile, but he did go to Eastern Washington. He was in the class of 2019. And Sterling Galvin, class of 2018. So he graduated high school before Payton Jack and I graduated from high school. He was a 3-star committed to Texas Tech. And then Jaquan Gibson was a class of 2022 2-star wide receiver. And he's been
UMass lifer.
UMass lifer. We can get into I'll kind of go speed through some of these ones, but the tight end position, Dominic Mazzotti, I believe that's San Diego State.
That's San Jose State.
San Jose State, sorry. Class of 2019. He was a 2-star athlete, and now he's the tight end at UMass. It's even cool to like look at these ones for the Mizzou players as well, seeing like Marcus Bryant, Caden Green, Cameron Johnson all being transfers, and then you get a team that has a lot of transfers. On the offensive line, left tackle is from Cal, the left guard is from Navy, and then you have 3 straight UMass offensive linemen.
Built there.
Still a lot of guys, that originally committed to the Minutemen. We get to the defensive line, Wake Forest, Eastern Michigan, Florida State.
4-star from Florida State.
Yep. Class of 2021. Looking at the linebackers, they do sometimes run with 3 linebackers. They're all UMass guys: Jalen Stewart, Gerald Johnson, and Darian Craig. All 2-star. 2 stars according to Rival. This is the one thing we'll get into the last position group here in the secondary. This was one of my favorite things. So Mizzou has the star position. UMass has its own position called the Viper. And
that's fire.
The guy who plays Viper is Jalen Harrell, who was in the class of 2020, originally a Miami commit. He was ranked 115th in the nation in the Rivals 250 in that class. You got Tyler Rudolph in that secondary as a safety, class of 2019 at Penn State. Teray Powell, who has always been like Payton just said, a UMass lifer. Isaiah Rutherford, who was a 4-star, Rutherford, 4-star for Notre Dame. And then this is a fun one. Jake Ellis, who never actually received a star.
No, not Jake Ellis.
Oh, sorry, Lake Ellis.
Lake. His name is Lake.
Yes, Lake
Ellis.
I
went to Bryant.
And he went from Bryant in the class.
I didn't even know Bryant had football.
I did. They played in the Patriot.
Wow.
Yeah, needless to say, I don't think. Look, no disrespect, but like
secondary has a
Jalen Harrell did not come to UMass after being a 4-star at Miami because he lived up to that potential. Quite frankly, it is fun to see things like this. I really do enjoy these lists, like because the journey is just cool to see.
Yeah.
But again, like the biggest mismatch was wide receivers. My God. You got Theo Weiss, who was a 5-star, Luther, who was a 5-star, and Mookie, who was a 4-star. And then you go down to UMass, you got a unranked 2-star and then a 3-star. A 3-star that is like 28 years old.
3-star who graduated high school before Kenny Payton and I did.
Yeah.
And we are now out of college. We've been out of college for over a year, by the way.
Yeah. Fun list, Kenny. I like
wild.
this.
Yeah, great list, Kenny. Well, we should do this every time. I think there could even be some fun ones on the SEC. I hope. Like maybe there's.
I mean, this isn't fun.
No. I'm like saying it. Like no, the other schools have to live up to this kind of fun. This is the most fun we'll have about UMass this weekend. This is the best part of this game. Like I'm gonna watch. Go back up. I'm gonna watch Sterling Galvin make a catch, and I'm gonna be like, that guy's older than me. That makes me feel good. I still have a chance. I mean, it makes me think I still have a shot to play in college. Eligibility. This is this is insane. They have a Notre Dame, a Miami, and a Penn State commit in their secondary. That's wild. That's wild. There you go. Well, yeah, there's a look at UMass. We were not gonna bother. I don't know, Kenny, if you would like to say any PFF things, but it's okay if you don't. Yeah,
how about a prediction? Let's get our predictions.
Oh,
in.
yeah. Let's get our predictions in, obviously. And then, take us home. Kenny's pulling up the doc. Prediction time. Who won A&M? It looks like Kenny did.
Kenny won, yeah. Because he's the only one
who
predicted that they'd win.
Yep. Good job, Kenny. You preyed on the downfall correctly. While Kenny's putting these in, Peyton, you go first. What's your prediction?
I'm going to take Missouri by a score of 84-0. Because I don't care. This is just a complete waste of time.
84-0.
Missouri wins 84-0.
That'd be awesome if you were spot on.
Boy, oh boy, I would shout that from the
Can
heavens.
I do mine next, Kenny?
Go ahead.
83-0. Closest without going over.
Douchebag.
Just go 82.
Yeah.
I win. Like, I do not think they're gonna win.
The only way my strategy works.
81-0.
The only way my strategy works is if you pick something above 84.
Okay. I'll go.
Mizzou's gonna lose this game.
No, they aren't. Please, I'm not even entertaining the doomer
Can we make some
possibility.
forfeit?
Of
What do
them
we
losing
do?
this.
What do we do
if they what?
lose? If they lose, what do we do? We got to do something. If we're that
Well, if they lose, then we're gonna just not do the show.
56-0 Tigers.
All right.
56. So what if they do lose? Do I win?
No, Kenny would win.
Would he? Because it's
Why
close
would you win?
to 0, I
I
Because
don't
guess.
it's the closest without. Yeah.
You are only winning if they score 84 points. That is literally it.
Yeah, because Jack thinks Price is right.
Yeah, Kenny, I'm gonna hope for like
I'm
a
changing
60.
it to 82-0.
Yeah, Jack, your number is
No,
ridiculous.
you can't change it. You wrote it down.
I'm mentally changing it to 82-0.
Oh, the mental
So.
doesn't count. It's whatever happens on the field. You have your score locked in. What should we do if they lose?
Nothing.
Now, Payton has to do something if UMass scores, and then he can pass it.
What? No, I do not. My actual score prediction was going to be 49-7. So I expect UMass to score. But you guys got to realize, like, sometimes it's about sending a message.
Yeah.
And that's why I predicted 84-0.
I think there's been scores more than 84-0 in college football this season. Like there's been some.
There haven't.
Oh no, I thought there was like
actually no. South Alabama beat someone like 81-0.
Yeah, someone got close. I know that. All right, there's your score predictions. God, this game stinks. I guess we'll have a recap of it, and maybe we can just. Do we just embrace the fun of a lot of scoring, or do we just try and move on as quickly? Yeah, 87-10.
87-10. Major Applewhite and the Jaguars beat Northwestern State.
That's the expectation, Mizzou. Go Demons, by the way, Northwestern State. All right, that'll put to rest the UMass segment. Let's just get through this weekend. Hope you enjoy the game. If you're going to the game, Mizzou fans, unique road trip, I guess. Enjoy it. Save that ticket stub. But yeah, let's just hope it's closer to Payton's scoreline and we can just move swiftly onward and see what Mizzou can salvage from this season. We'll salvage the rest of this show with quick hits. Okay, quick hits time. We'll finish off the show, try and talk about some more fun stuff other than UMass. We have jerseys of the week to start off quick hits, as per usual on Friday. Kenneth, what's your jersey of the week?
I was waiting for that.
I was hoping you were going to say yes.
My jersey of the week goes to Darius Robinson. This news came from around the NFL at the beginning of the week. Cardinals first rounder D-Rob, or D Mizzou, who began the season on the injured reserve, will return to practice this week. Head coach Jonathan Gannon announced. Unfortunately, I did read today that he was a DNP. He was not at practice for the Cardinals as of Thursday when we're recording this. Hopefully, he gets back out there and see him on the field so he can make his NFL debut.
I don't think that's super uncommon. I know a lot of these like practice windows, like it's a big 3-week ramp up. So they probably are just slow playing it with him right now. But I hope Darius plays well, man. He deserves it. All the luck in the world to him.
We need him and Ennis to really get going because we need Tigers in the Wild bad.
Yeah, I'll say that's a dry segment right now.
Yeah. The Cardinals have been like crazy unlucky too. Like they're not a bad team. Like he could come in and help them beat
the Niners.
Yeah, they're having a good season. Their defense is kind good, I guess. Yeah, good luck to Darius. Payton, jersey of the week. We know what this will be.
That's what I give this jersey. Boy, oh boy. Okay, I thought this. There's a new version of the tweet for those that couldn't see on the YouTube, so I was really confused why that only had 15 likes. Mizzou football tweeted their uniform just randomly on Wednesday, and it was very unenthusiastic. It was literally, the caption was Saturday's uniform, and there was no video. It was just a photo of what we got this week. It is Black M season for the first time. It is the hideous gold helmet with the black M. They couldn't even bless me with a decent looking Black M. It's the really ugly one that they love. White jerseys, white pants, still stripeless pants. Pretty terrible uniform for a pretty terrible game. Definitely the worst of the year for me. This one does not do it for me.
Would it have helped to watch UMass in better uniforms, or are you just happy they burned this?
Nope,
On
I am just wanting to get this over with.
Okay, that's fair. Look at that thread. That's some dedication.
Yeah.
Good question, Peyton. Does the M look a little smaller to you?
It does. I thought the same thing. I think that is more just the way the photo was maybe taken, but I always remember it like the Gasparilla Bowl M is what I think of when I see this. That was such a ugly, big, bulky M. I don't think they made it smaller. And even if they did, it doesn't look that much better. That is just a bad helmet. The Black M can look good. It does not look good when it's... Oh, it is a little bit of a different helmet, I think, than the one they wore in the Gasparilla. Can you go back to the other one to double check? Something seems a touch different.
I think the M is smaller.
I think it might
smaller?
be.
It
But
might be.
again, that doesn't really help it that much. It's still kind of a tacky looking helmet to me.
Also, I noticed that they wear the striped pants at practice now. That might mean that the striped pants are out the window.
That would be these plain pants with no tiger. You're the Tigers. Put stripes on your uniform. Do not wear the ugly plain pants, man.
What's the record since we've gone to plain pants?
Well, if you include LSU, they wore plain pants against LSU last year and lost that game. I think they wore stripes every other game last year, from what I can remember. So right now they're 4-2.
Okay, well, I guess the good games are coming up, kind of still, other than A&M.
Yeah.
So we could trash them then after they start losing. I don't think I like the yellow and black M helmet. I don't think I'm a fan of it either. They could.
If you're gonna do the M, do it like on a black helmet. I think the M needs a black helmet.
Yeah, I'm not a huge, or maybe an older gold. I don't know. I know you like the yellow, but the helmet's just it's very loud. It's very loud.
Just does not look good with that. But moving on.
Yeah. My jersey of the week, it's actually going to be shoes of the week. Shout out to Eli Hoff for this tweet. Mizzou wide receiver Luther Burden has inked a NIL deal with Kane Footwear for the company's college-branded recovery shoes. Burden and Ohio State running back Quinshon Judkins and cornerback Denzel Burke are Kane Footwear's 3 NIL athletes. And I guess these are recovery shoes. They look kind of like they're like a Croc.
They look breathable.
Hybrid. They do look very breathable. I think the whole thing is maybe you're barefoot in them because you're like recovering. I don't really know, but I'm not an athlete. But they look pretty cool. I always like seeing fun NIL deals. So congrats to Luther for that one.
Kenny's more of a runner.
The purpose of Crocs were for marathon runners. It was how they used them for recovery. So I understand that they're. I mean, if you're watching on the YouTube and if you've seen these anywhere, you can tell that they do look like Crocs. They got the holes. Probably soft on the inside, so good for the feet, especially for guys that are standing around, running around for their jobs.
I do like that he is an NIL athlete with Denzel Burke, because, I mean, that was the matchup in the Cotton Bowl, and Burke held Luther Burden down for a lot of that game until it really, really mattered. So just a fun little thing I noticed.
I liked they need the Croc thing to put it in sport mode, though, or maybe it's just always in sport mode. Looks like it has like ties in the back of it.
Sport mode? Is it a drone? Is it a Mavic?
You never heard when the Croc, like when you've got the little flap at the back of the Croc down, that's it's in sport mode?
Nah.
Okay. Kenny's a Croc user. He understands.
Yeah. Kenny could speak on that.
Kenny's
wearing them right now.
Kenny's a Croc user.
Let's see them. Are they?
They're
Let's see
old.
the Crocs. Where are they? Get it because they're camouflage. Oh, I'm such
This
a
is
jokester.
Great podcasting for those.
I like
not on
no
the
capping.
YouTube.
He's the main bird.
Kenny has wood.
I like no capping. He's the main bird. No,
wood
I like
camo.
no capping. He's the main.
Put the repeat on to cut you off. Main bird of the week. This is going great. Kenny. Bird.
My main bird of the week goes to LaShawn Williams, who's a running back for Iowa, who announced that he's going to enter the transfer portal, leaving the team for the remainder of the season. He has 1 season left of eligibility. The reason I make him my main bird, he had some, pretty decent seasons at Iowa, 821 yards on the ground in 2023, 413 on the ground in 2022. But this season, not really seeing much of the field or many carries, with only 11 through the first couple of games of the season. He has 1 more year of eligibility, and if the Tigers are going to look to the transfer portal, which I think we've all kind of assumed that they will, considering Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel will be out of eligibility this year, maybe LaShawn Williams is the guy they give a look to.
Wow, this is a future. Kenny's already looked to the future. He's already making a short list for us.
He's trying to be him. He's trying real hard to
All my shot right now.
Yeah. Not much of a power runner, I'll tell you what. 170 carries in 2023 and 1 touchdown. And 2022, 117, 2 touchdowns. So not a whole ton of touchdown production. Might be more of a change of pace guy.
I think you need one. I think you need two running backs again if we're going to get this guy, unless Kwan Lacey's just going to be
the man.
But okay, all right, Kenny, add him to the watch list. LaShawn Williams from Iowa. Payton, main bird.
My main bird is going to be Kalen DeBoer, Bird Connection. He used to be Eastern Michigan, the Eagles, their OC. They just, of course, had a very, for Alabama standards, pretty embarrassing loss to Vanderbilt over the weekend. But what's more important is Shirtgate. And right now, Kalen DeBoer is in a bit of hot water because he was wearing a T-shirt on the sideline. Tony Tsoukalis from Rivals, I don't know if anyone here knows him. He tweeted, Kalen DeBoer said word has got to him about Alabama fans' displeasure with him wearing a T-shirt against Vanderbilt. So I didn't know this was a thing. T-shirt gate. Looks like Kalen DeBoer is going to have to go into wearing like the Nick Saban like kind of pullovers, you know. My only question out of this is, do you want Drinkwitz to stop wearing T-shirts on the sidelines? We have this debate a lot about like Konzo wearing his pullovers and Dennis Gates wearing a suit. We're all team suit. Do you think Drinkwitz should sharpen up his attire on the sideline?
I think he should sharpen up his schemes before he worries about anything else. I don't know.
He wore a
I don't even remember what he wore. What did he wear against A&M?
He wore a T-shirt.
Did he?
He's worn polos before. He's worn hoodies.
I actually like the polo. I don't mind the polo look.
Polo looks good, actually, for
Polo
him.
looks good. Or yeah, like a
long sleeve there.
A performance long sleeve type deal.
Hoodie drink.
Hoodie drink is good. And he's got to have the hat. We always need the hat.
Yeah.
But not like that hat. Not like an actual cap, like the one.
That's a visor.
The visor. That's what a word I was looking for. Whoa, that's a weird photo.
Dave Doran, who coached Northern Illinois in the GoDaddy Bowl against Arkansas State back in the day. Kenny.
That's your connection. There you go. Yeah, this was bad. People were calling in to his radio show this week and telling him that no. It was the opposite. They were telling him they supported whatever he wore. So it was actually good.
It's still funny that's a thing.
No, it's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, the Alabama's always had they always had the same polo that everyone wore. And now DeBoer's his first game he wore like a all black, like it was like a black sweatshirt that said Alabama and black sweatpants, and people were kind of up in arms about that too. They were like, I don't know about that for his first game. Like,
is he not blazing hot?
It's not crimson. Yeah, he's kind of a robot. He's a little bit of a robot. He's not worried about the heat. I don't know. But this was a definitely the thing that went the most wrong about Saturday for Alabama was was DeBoer's wearing. No doubt about it.
Blake Baker used to wear hoodies when it was extremely hot outside during some of the September games, like for practices and even in the summer. He would wear cleats too. So, like he's just
I
always,
remember the cleats.
He was always like in a lot of gear, and it seemed like the heat didn't really bother him. He's from Houston. He's lived in Florida and Louisiana, so he's been around it.
I miss Blake Baker so much. I miss Blake Baker. Corey Batoon, though. I like Corey Batoon. But cleats, that's such a football guy move. It's awesome. All right. My main bird of the week is going to be Spencer Rattler, one of our favorite show topics. I feel like this guy just comes back up. Bird connection, of course, was at South Carolina Gamecocks. He's going to start for the Saints against the Buccaneers. He's overcome the he's a jerk allegations from his Netflix documentary. He'll make his first start with the New Orleans Saints. Payton, I'm very glad you shook your head at that. I was going for that reaction because that was just so funny during the draft when everyone was talking about the Netflix doc. Yeah, he's had quite the career. Do you guys think he will succeed in his first start with the Saints?
No, but it's a big day for 2019 Oklahoma. I mean, both of the correct answer in Rattler versus Williams was apparently both of them because they're both NFL starters.
Shout out that Cotton Bowl. I was thinking about that today.
Yeah, how like fired up everyone was that Caleb was going to play and that Bob Stoops came out of retirement to rally the troops, and then they got killed.
Kenny, you have a take on
Were you talking about the Red River game, or were you actually talking about that Cotton Bowl game?
The Red River.
Yeah, the Red River game, Bob Stoops was not the head coach for.
I thought he was talking about the bowl game they were in.
No, there's a.
Oh no. The Red River game was when Rattler they swapped him for Caleb.
They
Williams
swapped him, and then
Caleb right. Yeah,
was sitting on the field after the game. There's a very cool shot of him just kind of lounging on the field. Spencer Rattler has $75, I believe, for me. It's either 75 or 175.
I forgot about that.
I wonder what he did with that money. I bought a cameo from him for Christmas last year. It's for him to tell my cousin that I got him tickets to the Oklahoma Arizona the Alamo Bowl. Yeah. So he didn't actually say that the tickets were for the Oklahoma game. He just said I got tickets to the next game, and I think he should practice his cameos, but I also think he just didn't want to say Oklahoma.
I forgot you had to do that. So Kenny's had a personal interaction with Spencer Rattler. Yeah, I don't know.
He just read my text.
No, it's very personal. I just wanted an excuse to throw an NFL thing on here. I was either going to do this or Robert Salah and make a jet a bird, but I didn't feel like that was a strong enough connection. He got fired though. Big news. All right. Finish things off. Best thing you learned. Payton, what's the best thing you learned?
Best thing I learned this week, college basketball season is right around the corner, folks. And that means we got media days coming up. Missouri's lineup is going to be Dennis Gates, Mark Mitchell, and Tony Perkins. So 2 newcomers out of the portal, but 2 guys who I think are kind of like maybe like 1A and 1B for a lot more optimism than last year because, I mean, those were both kind of big-time portal gets for them. So it'll be Dennis Gates, Mark Mitchell, and Tony Perkins headed down to where is this at, Knowlton?
Birmingham.
Heading down to Birmingham, and they are 2:50 to 5 p.m. on October 15th.
I'm looking forward to watching this. I'm excited. I was texting you guys. I'm excited that it's 2 new guys. Oh, also Missouri.
Oh, that's right. The women's one was also announced. That's a day later. So October 16th. 3:55 to 5:55, you'll have Robin Pinchton, Ashton Judd, and Grace Slaughter.
I'm excited for these. I'm excited to watch them. Especially like with Mark Mitchell and Tony Perkins. Like I was texting you guys. I'm excited it wasn't just like Aiden Shaw and Tamar Bates. Like I'm glad it's kind of 2 new players. I think that'll be a good time. Yeah, we're getting
Higginbottom go to Mizzou?
Yes, she did. That's one I was
just transferred to Arkansas.
Yeah, and then she went to Arkansas State after Mizzou. And I guess now she's at Arkansas. I did not know that.
I think Arkansas got a new coach too. I'm looking forward to this. We've already gotten. I was reading Mizzou had its media day recently, which we'll have more basketball talk in a second. But I saw the classic Dennis Gates saying we want to play in the Alamo Dome, like where he doesn't name the Final Four specifically. He just says that he wants to play on the date and in the venue. Just, maybe it's an exhibition.
That's a good way to get around it. I never said I wanted to go to the Final Four.
Yeah. I just said I wanted to be playing on April 1st and April 3rd in Houston, Texas. That was always what it was in 2023. And now I guess it's April, 5th and 7th in San Antonio.
Ugh. Alamo Dome sucks. I'm sorry. If anyone's listening likes it, it's a piece of garbage. I cannot believe they're playing a basketball game there.
They do the Final Four in San Antonio a lot.
Yeah. I just can't believe it's there. It's just, I don't know. I don't like it doesn't even hold that many people. Like I don't get it. No, it's not that big.
I think it looks really good.
Have you been inside of it?
Yeah, I'm looking inside of it right now.
just on what, Google Earth? Why is it bad, Kenny?
It's just old. It feels like the stadium.
Oh, old people suck. You heard it here first from Kenny Van Doren.
Kenny doesn't like old people.
It's just small and it's just old.
I will advocate forever. I no longer wish basketball games to be played in football stadiums. I get that they have to do it because they have to sell tickets, but it's not as cool.
It looks cool on the outside.
It's honestly absurd at times because the 2020 March Madness that was held exclusively in Indiana, Mizzou played their game at Lucas Oil and not in it was not a basketball court in the middle of Lucas Oil. They split Lucas Oil in half with a big curtain.
That was so cool. It was so cool.
Game on one side.
I thought that was kind of sick. Like it was you could only watch it from 3 because it was just a curtain on the fourth side, and so it was only 3 sides.
It had charm, in its own way. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was kind of unique. I don't know. Having gone to the Final Four and watching a basketball game in a football stadium, I did not enjoy it. It's just no view's good. I was watching the scoreboard the whole time. I don't know. That's just my take. I'm anti-football stadium basketball games. But that's a rant. That's a rant or a hill I'll die on. Anyway, Kenny, best thing you learned.
This comes from Tom Orff, who works in the Mizzou press box for a lot of these football games, always has great stats and keeps great records of everything. But he posted this one today on Thursday when we're recording this. This date in Mizzou football 2020, Josh Bledsoe knocked down a 4th down pass on a 4th and 1 from MU's 1-yard line with 16 seconds left to preserve a 45-41 victory over LSU. Connor Bazelak completed 29 of 34 passes, which is 85%, for 406 yards and 4 touchdowns against the reigning national champions. All 3 of us were there.
Yep.
This came up recently too. There's a video that kind of went around. It was one of those final plays, and you can see Payton and I sitting on the hill. But Jack, you were actually in the stands.
I was.
Got a better seat. Payton and I were, I think, one of the worst. I don't think I felt like that worse in a long time.
I was
I've had
as a dog afterwards.
And I've had laryngitis. I think we got sun poisoning of some sort, but our faces were just so flushed for the whole week. We had to wear masks outside in the heat.
I really thought I was gonna throw up everywhere. I felt so. I had to go home after this game. First of all, it was totally worth it. By the way, that was an unforgettable game, and yes, it was a skeleton crew of that national championship team, but it was still really cool to say that you saw Missouri do that.
Coach O was in there. It still counts.
Yeah. But boy, I had to go home and take a freezing cold shower to cool off. I could not cool down.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite games ever as a Mizzou fan, any sport. This was so much fun. We were in the student section. It was in the other end zone. So you're looking like this down the field and you have no idea if they actually got in the end zone or not. And then everyone else cheers. And yeah, Connor Bazelak, that tweet reply is perfect. I thought Mizzou had something. I was like,
I did too. That 2020 season in general, I just thought was a breakout campaign for him. That was Drinkwitz's first win at Mizzou, and I would say it was probably his best win at Mizzou until the Kansas State game last year. You could I always think people. Yeah, that people always underrate beating South Carolina on the road. I think that was really good. But I mean, that was like a huge, like that was like that was something I will never ever forget. Like I will never forget seeing Bledsoe tip that ball down, or the play even before where Nick Bolton read it perfectly and knocked it down on 3rd and goal. Because I remember jumping we were on the hill. I jumped so like far forward, I almost slipped and fell because I was jumping on a hill essentially. But yeah, that's a fun little one to always reminisce on.
Yeah, one of my favorite Mizzou games. Connor Bazelak was the future. Shout out Orf for replying that Bazelak leads the MAC in passing yards and yards per game. Almost
That
beat Penn
doesn't
State.
really disprove what Dan Flory said. Dan Flory said, I really thought a star had arrived on that day. And Orf is like, well, he currently leads the MAC in passing yards and passing yards per game. It's the MAC. I don't really think it matters.
Yeah, good times.
Middle of the MAC.
Middle of the MAC.
Yep.
My best thing I learned this week, we got the tip times for Mizzou men's basketball today or on Thursday. And you won't be able to watch them if you don't have SEC Network Plus until December 3rd, because they play every single one of their non-con games until the ACC SEC Challenge.
You'll probably be
SEC
able to
Network
watch
Plus.
them on November 4th. That game will probably be televised.
Oh yeah, okay, sorry. I guess that's still a TBA against Memphis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course, I think biggest takeaway that people had from this is that the Kansas game is at noon and it is not even on ESPN. They put it on ESPN too.
Yeah, man, you want to see what going 0-19 does to you. This is dreadful. To not even get the Border War like at a decent time slot on ESPN is a real bummer. I mean, when we went in 2021, or what was it? Gosh, it's been 2 years now, 2022. I mean, that was like mid-afternoon game. ESPN's A crew was there. Like, that was a big deal. And it's still the Border War. It's still going to be jam-packed. It's going to be electric, I'm sure. I really, really, really hope Missouri wins those Memphis and California games. And, of course, all the blood donors in between. Because, I mean, if you roll into that game unbeaten, you're going to get another, like, super electric crowd. And I'm sure Dennis is going to be a bit more prepared for this Kansas team than he was the first time around.
I thought Mizzou was going to win the first time.
I was totally riding the wave.
I was they're
going. I really was like, they're going to win this game. But
I thought they were going to.
Luckily, they took us out of it quickly.
I think I was at Mizzou Arena for 12 hours that day. That was a long day.
Kenny and I were standing outside of it for like 5 or something.
Yeah, we got to the stadium before you did.
Yeah, I was there at probably 9 a.m. and I don't think I left until
that was that's like another core memory since like we're just reminiscing on like Mizzou beating LSU, like standing outside
because they suck now.
Yeah, standing outside, it was like decent enough weather in like late December. Like Desiree and Eli came out and gave everyone pizza. Like people were so amped up that like Dave Matter walked by and people chanted Dave Matter. And like did the same thing with Gabe DeArmond. Like that's just how amped up people were. I will definitely, that was honestly the best part of the game was like the walk into the stadium and then the charge to the seats was electric. And then nothing happened. I don't have a memory of the game, but
yeah. Kenny, what do you remember from that game?
Yeah, what do you remember from the lead in?
I remember sprinting through the door, didn't even get my ticket scanned. Getting to the seats, and I think I was with Aaron, and we didn't I was like 4 rows in front of everyone. Then found you guys, and we stood together. I remember seeing Max Scherzer.
That was crazy. I did not know.
That caught me off guard. I was not expecting that.
That was hype.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't get my name chanted because I'm not Dave Matter, Gabe DeArmond, but it did feel cool covering the game because it was like you had to walk around the crowd and then, you got your own like entrance into the stadium and everyone's just kind of watching, from the pen of people. And you like I felt like a celebrity. I was like, this is so cool. But yeah, I totally thought they were going to win that game.
None of us grew up like when, none of us were Mizzou fans when like Mizzou was in the Big 12 and everything. So And it was still like I was,
was
like
pretty special.
totally engaged. I was in FKU mode and everything. Like I felt the energy. I cannot imagine what it was like for people that like had seen that rivalry go away for so long and then get to go back and see that. Like,
I talked
so
to a
cool.
fan. I talked to a fan who flew in from Germany the night before just to make it in time. Like he left a trip early so they could go to the game. I was like,
oh, that's sick.
Respect. Good reminisce session, gentlemen. After that A&M game, I needed that to rekindle the fire underneath me for I will add one thing. I'm going to go back to what Payton said about DeBoer. A caller called into the radio show and got mad at everybody for Alabama losing to Vanderbilt and said people were overreacting because in his 68 years of being a Bama fan, their worst ever loss in his eyes was to Missouri in, I think, 1973. So there you go. Mizzou
They
still lives
lost
in the
to UL Monroe. How did we catch that flag?
Not according to Donnie and Enterprise, Alabama, or whoever the hell it was.
He was UL Monroe this century, and Missouri was.
He said Mizzou. That's what he said.
That's crap, man.
So I thought people would appreciate that. Mizzou still lives in the hearts of Alabama fans, especially because I don't think the game down in Tuscaloosa is going to be very good. It's going to be pretty bad. It's going to be pretty bad. All right. Joke, Payton?
Yeah, I got one. This one comes from our favorite TV series, The Today Show. Guys, is there anything worse than when it's raining cats and dogs?
Yeah, I feel like this could be like one of those jokes where it's like if it was raining like rocks and
you're on the right track with that.
Raining glass.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yes. It's called hailing taxis.
Okay.
That's a good one.
I don't like that one.
I like that one.
I don't like that one. It's too big brain for me. All right, that'll do it. There's your disjointed UMass preview. We got through that one, guys. Our dreaded I think we were dreading this show maybe more than most, just because there's such little to get motivated to talk about from an actual competitive game standpoint. But we did well. And we'll recap the game for you guys. 11 a.m. ESPN2. You can watch it. Enjoy it if you can, I guess. Hopefully Mizzou wins 84-0 and Payton's prediction can come true. Until next time, we will see you guys on Monday.